again, everyone, and thank you for your attendance. And on this Monday morning momentum, this particular version is in response to a number of requests that we've had in prior calls about how we best arm our organizations up against the devastating impact that the pandemic has had on us, the devastation it's had on our members, and the fact that in those times we've had difficulty, of course, having in-person events, our main fundraising tool. And so this particular session on boosting your fundraising capacity, your fundraising strategy, again, is in response to those requests. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our chair, Madam Courtney Johnson Rose, to introduce our special guest this morning.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and good morning to all of our chamber leaders. Good morning to the cyber world that's out there that will have the opportunity to glean and learn from this. We're excited to have our special guest today, who is a friend of TAC, Mr. Karoji Robinson. Mr. Robinson graduated as a who's who among American law students from the George Washington University Law Center in Washington, D.C. He is an associate professor and former associate dean of external affairs at the Barbara Jordan Mickey Leland School of Public Affairs here in Houston at the Texas Southern University. He's also co-principal investigator of the TSU National Transportation Security Center of Excellent Petrochemical Transportation Security Team. Professor Robinson is a former at-large elected citywide member of the Houston City Council. He also represented the city of Houston on the board of directors for the Houston-Galveston Area Council, a very powerful board here. Prior to his election to the city council, Professor Robinson was an associate professor at the Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University and served as executive assistant to two presidents of Texas Southern University. He was also a member of the advisory board of the law school's Earl Carl Institute for Legal and Social Policy. Professor Robinson had worked in the Texas legislature as chief of staff and general counsel to Texas State Senator Rodney Ellis. He has an impressive list of publications, has also presented numerous presentations and served as a keynote speaker across the country. Outside of academics, he's active and holds a lifetime membership to the NAACP. He's a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. He also holds memberships with the National Bar, American Bar Association, State Bar of Texas, Houston Lawyers Association, and the Houston Bar Association. He's currently the president of the Texas Black Democrats, and he's also former chair of the board of the Greater Houston Black Chamber. So we are honored to have Mr. Karoji Robinson. He knows politics, he knows policy, he understands the state legislative process. He's been a chair of a local chamber before, a local Black chamber. He's been an elected official. So just so many things that we can glean and learn from Karoji Robinson. And thank you, sir, for being our guest speaker on this morning. Welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Courtney. Man, you know, my mama wouldn't even know who you were talking about there for a minute. It may have finally dawned on her that it's her kid.
We are proud of you. We are proud of you. You represent us so well in so many places. And just knowing that you have a Black chamber background and walked in the same shoes that we are walking in means the world. So thank you again for your time and being here with us today.
Always. Charles, thank you, my frat brother. You know,
Yes,
listen, I've been on so many Zoom with all my Alpha friends, my Kappa friends. I'm just glad to be on Zoom where I know there's at least one other.
There you go. There you go.
Good morning. It's actually two of y'all. It's actually two.
However, it still likes cold around here.
Hey, let me do the Panhellenic thing, and then
yes,
let's talk about the charge this morning for the space you want me in. I will say it to you this way, and I'll use some of what we did in Houston with the Greater Houston Black Chamber, and then talk more generally about how I think you can structure fundraising opportunities, even if you can't do in-person events in the manner we used to do them. And even when you get back to in-person events, digital fundraising is a powerful tool out there that should be utilized. In politics for a long time, the thought always was you raise money from big donors, and big donations were what would really support the candidate and the political operation. It's turned around now, not just in politics, but also broadly speaking in the nonprofit sector, because I've served and continue to serve on nonprofit boards, that most of the fundraising now comes from outreach to small dollar donors who we used to do it by mail, but now with emails, social media, you could do it directly with digital advertising. In Houston, we had the chamber, and then we set up a separate foundation from the chamber to do our philanthropic fundraising effort. If we were going to do it over, I would have probably at the time suggested that we just make the main chamber organization, but this is a preference for each group. You can make your chamber your 501c4. Most of you are also NAACPers, and you saw that the NAACP, we moved away from being a 501c3 to a 501c4, because as a 501c4, you have the ability to be more active in the advocacy space. The constraint is larger, for lack of a better description. 501c3 is very limited as to what you can do, and even engaging in what I would call civic participation activities. When you're in the 501c section of the code, you can never say elect someone, but you can always educate about, hey, Carole Robinson did this as city council member. Here's what's going on with the Medicare or Medicaid or something at the state, local, or federal level. In the 501c3 space, it's very limited to that civic engagement. Most people pick the 501c3 because they get the donor gets a tax write-off, but you also have that benefit over in the 501c4 space. Some people do either 501c3 or 501c4 because they're also trying to limit the exposure of their donors, because unlike in a political campaign, the reporting requirements are not as strict, and they report on a different schedule, and they report to the IRS, and most people don't go over to the IRS searching for who is donating to 501c3 or C4 organizations. So if you want to keep your chamber in the status it is, so let's call it operational only, then you want to do I'm gonna use the general term foundation. I would make it a 501c4. My recommendation to anyone that's bringing it up would be to bring up your fundraising arm, your pure philanthropic fundraising arm, as a 501c4, because you can use it not just to raise money, but you can also use it to be more actively engaged in civic participation and civic education. And then I would also encourage the chambers to add on two other things. The first one, I would think the state chamber should do it and not the local chambers, because the paperwork is so much more cumbersome. But I would advocate that now that we've gone to 38 congressional members and 2 United States senators in Texas, and over the next 10 years, we'll probably add more members of Congress to our delegation in Texas, the state chamber should probably open a federal campaign account so that they could donate directly to federal candidates. As we all know, the chamber, I'm gonna use political terminology. It's not for purposes of politics, it's for purpose of description. We're a nonpartisan or quote unquote bipartisan organization. So to really directly engage federal elected officials beyond just the restrictions of the 501c4 or C3 category with your foundation, If you have a federal campaign account, you can actually raise money and donate to and literally run ads out of the federal PAC that says vote against or vote for. So that should be something the state chamber thinks about. The state chamber and local chambers should also consider in doing something like this. This is the fourth piece. So inside the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats, we're like the chamber. We have local affiliates and we have a state PAC at the state level, and we have worked with our local chapters so that they can bring on a state PAC. In Texas, it would be called a general purpose campaign committee. You file your paperwork with the Texas Ethics Commission, and it's really just the designation of somebody to be your treasurer. You file the form, the Texas Ethics Committee sends you back a copy of it, acknowledging that it's been received. And you take that and you go to the bank and you open a bank account, and you literally can start fundraising to donate to local and state candidates. A state general purpose campaign committee cannot donate to federal candidates. The reason I suggested the state PAC, the state chamber do the federal PAC is the reporting requirement, plus also it gives one central location for federal candidates to deal with, as opposed to when you set up the state PAC, the state general purpose campaign committee as a local chapter, then the local chamber can do contributions to the city council, the school board, the state rep, the state senator. And the way we do it inside the coalition is the statewide candidates and multi-county candidates. We let the state organization, in this case, that would be the state chamber, would be responsible for making political donations to them, since the state chamber does our lobbying in Austin at the legislature. So they would have a better sense of who we should be supporting on a bipartisan basis and why we should be supporting them. So they should run that screening process. Now down to the nitty gritty of it. Now that you have the accounts and you make decisions about a state account, state PAC, federal PAC, a 501c4 as opposed to a C3, because you want the freedom to advocate more, because regardless of how people describe it, somebody said it to me this way one time, Charles, back in the 2013, 2014. I said, nah, I wasn't interested in running for controller because the city was broke. And they said, well, the broke city is going to spend $4 to $6 billion. With all the problems that the state of Texas may have, or the United States government, there's still a lot of money that's going to be coming out of the federal government and the state government, especially in the space of trying to help businesses recover from the pandemic and past and future natural disasters. So you want to make sure that you build the infrastructure to have you at the table. So you got the state PAC, the federal PAC, the 501c4 that gives you much more room to do education, advocacy in the civic engagement, political space, voter engagement, voter turnout without any kind of issue. And then you have your base chamber organization. Now you got to go collect the money. One of the things I ask everybody is, how big is your email list? And it should not just be confined to the Black businesses that are members of your chamber. You should want to have a email list for your local chamber and the state chamber that has all your elected officials on both sides of the aisle, all the people inside their party, so all the precinct chairs on the Democrat and Republican side, all the county commissioners, the city council members, and you want to have all the people who are active in the business space in other business organizations because of the cross-pollination effect. And you also have the likelihood that there will be people who are interested in donating, and you want to use your email list to prospect for donors. I do it once a week on Fridays. that we put out a newsletter from the coalition that includes a link to donate. I encourage folks to pick a standard date, and the reason you pick a standard day once a week is because people get used to looking for your publication, your newsletter, your information digest, however you want to describe it, so you can update them on what's going on with local businesses in your community. From the statewide perspective, what's happening with Black businesses across the state and national news. And you always make an ask for two things: a direct donation, and you can also include the opportunity for people to market in the publication. I've been in some conversation, and Courtney and Charles, I'd like to have a separate call with you because over the last couple of weeks, I've been engaged in a conversation with some folks around this issue. We don't have a statewide organ, newspaper, or communication device. And I use newspaper as old language to describe not just a printed document, but a digital document. And so there are people who are interested in trying to fund something like that. And the chamber may be a good place to ultimately house it. So I'd like to talk to y'all to get you guys connected into this conversation with a bunch of large private sector donors who are interested in doing that. And they're interested in doing it because they want to have the ability to reach Black consumers across the state to market their businesses and their merchandise. And I think it's a vehicle that creates opportunity not only for fundraising, but also to do partnership with the Black businesses in local communities across the state. So like Coretta, we could all be going to the bank on a Monday morning knowing that it's the 15th or the 1st of the month coming, and we can cut a check where the employee's check will not bounce. So I'm literally sitting in the law office. I took over the law firm from my brother, and I tell people my hair has gotten grayer because you always have to make sure that you can cut payroll checks on the 1st and the 15th for us. So that vehicle is out there. We also do this as the coalition, and something I think the chambers should do statewide and locally, and encourage their member businesses. So we do a lot of social media advertising. The political part is going to go away because Facebook, Instagram, Twitter are making it harder for political entities to advertise, but it's much easier and actually fairly inexpensive for businesses and business organizations to advertise. And we use the ads to do two things. We prospect and fundraise simultaneously. So sometimes we'll put out information. To access the information, you have to give us your email address so that we have access to you going forward to email with you. And we always include a donate link. So if you tap one of the ads from the coalition, if it's not something where we are trying to capture email addresses, it shows you whatever it is, a video or a written message, and it has a donate link that takes you. In our space, we use what's called Act Blue for political purposes. And that's what I would recommend for the PAC, state or federal PAC, for each chamber and the state chamber. There are nonprofit tools that can be used for your 501c4. Even Act Blue could be used, but I would separate the political infrastructure from the 501c infrastructure and use one of the other vendors out there. But you accumulate a lot of emails, and you also prospect for donors. And there's a lot of folks who will donate, especially for giveaways. You know, folks love a t-shirt, a hat, and you can use the social media. So over the course of 1 year, just on social media ads and fundraising, the coalition raised over $100,000, and we probably did it across 5,000 to 6,000 individuals. We're still trying to grow our networks. Our email list now is up to about 200,000 email addresses across the state. and we probably have about 4 or 5,000, 6,000. Because sometimes when people sign up through the online donate system, they can sign up not just to give once, but they can sign up to be monthly recurring donors. So generally, if you look at political emails to you fundraising, it's really $3, $5, $10, because what you want the person to do is become a recurring monthly donors. So you can, as the chamber, cut a deal with your businesses to do promotional giveaways, discount coupons, and use that as your advertising. I'm gonna call it lost leader, to draw people in to give you their email address. Or we also run a text opt-in operation. So on a lot of our emails from the coalition, we ask you if you want to opt in, so that if you opt in, it's cheaper to send you a text message, because the way the law is. If you aren't opt in to my system, I have to do it individually, one at a time, to send a text message to your cell phone. But once you opt in, I can e-blast you. I can blast you to your cell phone, more correctly, and that's also another vehicle to utilize as the chamber. What I tell people and I think about is this: we have the largest Black population in the country. About 4.8 million of us are in Texas. 3 million or more are 18 and older. So you have a large prospecting base if you are a local chamber, whether you be in Denton. It's hard to explain to folks, but a lot of Black people now live in suburban counties in the state. Whether you're down in Corpus, there's still a large Black population. What we would call South Texas, from that Bexar County back across to Corpus, and even down into some of the Valley counties. So I would encourage you to not just think about fundraising as in-person events. The pandemic has done this. Folks have learned to be bifurcated. They don't necessarily love Zoom, but they are used to Zoom events, including Zoom fundraisers. So if you can find a business owner or a speaker that's interesting, you can do a Zoom, and on the Zoom, inside the chat, you can do fundraising through your link, and then you cross-pollinate it by dropping it as a Facebook Live or on your Instagram, and you solicit donations through the social media operation. But those are the things I would be thinking about. I'll say this last thing. We have the capability, we being the law firm I work with, and a group of young African Americans, that if folks are interested in getting their paperwork done for a 501c4, we'll do it at a steep discount, because what we're interested in is building the relationships too, as this group of young lawyers who works with me on these different kind of projects. The primary young lawyer's name is Nicholas Spencer. He's president of the Texas Democratic Lawyer in the state. And we just finished working together on the team with Gary Bledsoe, that represented the Texas Legislative Black Caucus doing redistricting, as well as several members of the congressional delegation. So yeah, there's a lot of money out there. It's hard to believe this, but literally, not just because the government support that came along leading into the early stages of the pandemic, but because so many people ended up staying home. A lot of people are flush with cash. So I would encourage everybody to not just think of their emails and text message now as output, but to think of them as reciprocal opportunities to do fundraising and grow their email list, and access to text messaging. If you don't have a text messaging operation, I can connect you with a guy I use, Ron Eaton, with a company out of Washington, D.C. called ATC Technologies, young African-American guy. I try to, as often and as much as possible, to utilize Black business vendors to do business operational infrastructure building for the coalition and to introduce them to other folks. So I hope that was helpful. I'm here as a resource, Charles and Courtney, and I'm happy to help any of the chapters with their 501c paperwork or with setting up the paperwork for a general purpose campaign committee that they can do their local political giving through, and happy to connect them with some of the folks that can help them with developing their email list and how to solicit to gain more emails and to do digital advertising. And the Ron Eaton also does something which is different from the social media advertising for you. He does IP targeting address. This is a powerful thing. It's a little scary. If you have a phone, a laptop, or a desktop, it has an IP address. We now have the ability, not me personally, but the vendors I work with, they can directly put the advertising into your house on your devices, depending on how many times you want it to run on Courtney's computer, and it'll find all of her devices so that you can make sure she sees it. So I'm a political reader. So in the morning times when I go on political, the advertising that are coming up are actually designed to be targeted specifically at me. And if Charles or Courtney got onto the political website, they would be seeing different ads from me that were specifically targeted at them based on the data that exists on who they have given to, what publications they subscribe to, what websites they regularly visit. So that information is out there, so that can help you with your fundraising solicitation, and it's also a resource that you can offer your members to enhance their membership benefit, because you can help them deliver their business advertising, their sales information, their discount coupons, specifically to the people in your area that would be most interested in what that specific business was offering. So I think about businesses now like they're political candidates, and how to help them generate revenue in the same way I try to do it for a candidate that's in the business of fundraising. It's basically the same methodology, just different vehicles to get it done.
Well, man, thank you. Number one, dude, that was as comprehensive a rundown as we could possibly have hoped for. I know that must have generated some questions out there among the membership. Really do appreciate that, Carol. That was insightful in a way that, again, we not expected because we didn't know, right? So really appreciate that. The first question, if I can go first, I would just, I guess my biggest concern would be, I'll say we're all going to be successful at creating these entities that you described, right? So how does the distribution work? So you're accepting funds for this specific purpose, and then you don't invest in any candidates. What do you run into?
So let me do the state entity, then I'll do the federal entity.
Okay.
So if you set up a general purpose campaign committee, a general purpose allows you to donate to any candidates you want to, but it also allows you to run operations. So you don't have to give the money directly to a candidate. You could use the money to do voter registration. You could give the money to a church, nonprofit organizations for their effort. It's just a vehicle that allows you to use it to give to a candidate or to run ads against the candidate. You literally can hold on to the money until the cows come home. You just have to regularly report it to the Texas Ethics Commission, and on their website, they have a reporting schedule. I have some folks who do it for the coalition. We have somewhere around 6 to 8 packs. So I don't try to be an expert at it. I hire the folks and pay them a percentage of the fundraising to help fundraise and be responsible for filing the reports and making sure all our compliance is done. And the same general rules apply to the federal campaign committee. The difference is the federal campaign committee reports to the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, but they can hold on to their money. They don't have to give it out to candidates. They can do the same thing. They can give it to nonprofit. They can do voter registration. They can spend it on commercials. They just have to report their money under the reporting requirements established by the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. And Nicholas Spencer, the young lawyer I mentioned, has done work in that space. So he understands the federal rules and requirements. And there's a network of them that they do it for congressional members now across the country, and other super PACs, as they call them, organizations. So we have the folks who can help you form it. If you want to use them to do your compliance, they exist. Most people do that. They use technical experts to do their compliance. So all they're responsible for is making decisions about who and where they want to send their money. On the 501c4, all of your reporting is to the IRS. And the same thing, most of you have already done either 501c3 directly or been on a board. And then, with all the chamber and 501c operation, everybody does an audit on top of their reporting to the IRS, because the auditing is so that you have that audit report, especially to go solicit money from the foundation, of other philanthropic foundations, and in the corporate community now, so many of their foundations are giving to racial justice and equity endeavor. So I'm sure the chamber is or will be out there soliciting funds from those organizations. And even local chambers can do it, because the local corporations in your county or your city or in your region, they're also looking for opportunities to partner and do philanthropic projects together. And labor, I tell people too, I just make this one last mention. Don't forget, labor unions are out there too. And they also have a lot of money that they contribute to either the political, state or federal, or the 501c4 organizations.
Outstanding. Other questions out there? This is really, 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 really helpful, because I think that we're very clearly, I don't think of it, it's obvious as our noses on our faces. This nexus between politics and economics is becoming more and more and more and more graphically apparent, right? And we're struggling here in the state of Texas in ways that other states aren't. Some of it as a result of that population boom that you see, putting a lot of pressure on the old ways of doing things, the status quo. And despite our increasing presence in the population, we've not seen a corresponding increase in opportunity. Yep. So at the local level, to the extent that we can arm ourselves with the tools that will allow us to jigger the machinery, so to speak, it's a plus for the people that we work for, the members that we represent.
Exactly. I mean, it's hard to explain to people, but you don't have to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to impact school board and city council races in most places, even county commissioners. And so much money is spent by county government, city government, and school boards that, one of the things the chamber chapters should be very conscious of is, go find and recruit folks. That's why you want the PAC operation set up, because you use your PAC to go find and recruit folks and run them for school board council. Even if you don't win, it sends a message that people have to be more responsive. So I can't tell you what a big difference it makes to have, say, Rodney Ellis as county commissioner, because once he got it done at the Harris County Commissioners Court for them to do MWBDE, a disparity study, and set up a MWBDE office, operations, small business, everybody has a little different title. But now he started spreading to the port, all the school districts, all the city. We had it in Houston first. It took decades for Rodney to finally get to Commissioner's Court. But we can do the same kind of thing in cities and counties across the state. And we now are fortunate at the local level. There are 53 or 54 Black mayors in the state of Texas, several hundred Black city council members, and the chamber has the ability to be the educational leader for our elected officials on the things that they should be focused on at the local level right now, while the state level goes through all that it's going through.
Yeah, we in fact, that's I appreciate you bringing that up. One of the things that we've been really trying to put legs and feet on is our relationship with Association of Black City Council members. Most of those 50 plus Black mayors are in mayor council cities, where the mayor sets the agenda rather than a council manager, right? And so we really have an opportunity. And I did a non-scientific little survey a couple of years ago for the aggregate budgets of those cities with Black mayors that are mayor council cities is over $1 billion.
Yeah.
And well, the state of Texas don't spend but $300 million with Black folk. So if we could just harness the buying power or the spending power of those municipalities with Black mayors that control budgets, we could almost triple what the state spends with Black-owned businesses. And so it's really a critical relationship. And I appreciate you reminding us of that. I'm sure there are other questions out there. Really fascinating discussion this morning. I know also, I don't know if Madam Chair is still on. I think Carol Guest is still on. I know that you were really instrumental in making sure that the Greater Houston Black Chamber had such an entity.
Yes.
And Carol, yeah, go ahead.
No, Carol and Courtney have kept the legacy going, and the Greater Houston Black Chamber and our foundation is doing a lot of interesting things now. I'm trying to remember. I think I think it was Dallas where we saw the model when I became chair of the chamber and decided to adopt it. It took a little minute, but we were really fortunate in Houston. We had great leadership and we built a succession plan. So everybody that has come, we knew this was going to be the order that we would end up having chamber leadership, so that we could have a coherent plan of where we wanted to take the chamber to where it is right now.
That's good. That's good. Other questions out there?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
One, I'll probably need to hire you for a number of things, because our chamber was thinking about, because adding a 501c3, but I think we may need to do a 501c4. My question deals about with government and them wanting to donate, but then they put that stipulation on that you have to be a 501c3. So is there a way to work around that if you go 501c4?
So you can keep that's why I say it's dealer's choice, for lack of a better description. You can keep the base chamber as a 501c3 and make your foundation the 501c4. In the Greater Houston Chamber case, we ended up making the foundation a 501c3, or at least that was the conversation. Courtney and Carol would know better. But looking back now, based on my experience and seeing what's happened, I recommend, if you're going to bring up a standalone enterprise separate and distinct from the chamber, make it a 501(c)(4). If your chamber does not have a status, make that the 501(c)(3). That way you could take the money from government to operate the chamber, and you do your civic engagement, civic advocacy out of the 501(c)(4) foundation, and then you do pure politics out of your state general purpose campaign committee.
That's good. Did you have more? That was Miss Coretta Graham from Corpus Christi asking. So if you do have a question, please identify yourself. I want to jump right on that one, Carol. I would venture that most of our organizations, local organizations, are C6s.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to is it like starting all over, or can you go to the IRS and say, hey man, we've been a C6 for X number of years and we'd like to become change our designation to a C4?
It's just changing your paperwork with the IRS.
Right.
I mean, the great thing, I described it. The great thing about America is everything is doable. It's just a question of what do you want to do. And every location is different. So this is a generalized conversation we're having today.
Right.
Coretta, I know Coretta because I taught Coretta in law school, and Coretta and I are both lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to talk to the client and see what the client was trying to get done, because some folks may want to keep their chamber status designation under the IRS code, and then we can make the foundation. In some place, it would be better to be a 501(c)(3), because what you really want to do is you have a county or city government that really wants to help put money into it, and they want the 501(c)(3). So for the next couple of years, you build your 501(c)(3 till it gets strong enough. Then you can go add on the 501(c)(4) and the PAC. Everything doesn't have to be done simultaneously. It's just building that strategic business plan. So I would have to see what that particular chamber wanted to do. But if they wanted to make the conversion, literally the conversion is just filing paperwork with the IRS, because you're already in their system. So they love you. You're not getting started. You're just converting. And you just file the notice that you're converting your status. They accept the conversion paperwork. Nowadays, they email you back and your conversion is done, and you just start filing basically you file the same information just on a different form to a different section of the IRS. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's all the status change really requires nowadays.
Okay. And that's outstanding. Other questions, anyone? Because I got questions, man. So I can fill it up. The one question I'd like to have you address, Carol, is most of our local chambers, of course, are not in urban centers. We got Denton, we got Tyler, we got Longview, we got Abilene, and they need a different kind of approach to both fundraising and advocacy. So this is a little bit away from our main topic here, but what are some ways that we can arm local chambers in non-urban markets, or maybe a little more hostile market, overtly hostile markets, on shoring up their financial footing?
So I will do this. Let me do Abilene and Longview in West Texas and East Texas. Like you, Paul, we've been traveling this state such a long time now. Literally, people don't realize how Black West Texas is. And when I say West Texas, I'm gonna include the Panhandle. I'm gonna drop you over to El Paso in the third time. And I'm gonna bring you just down below the northern border. Literally, if I were doing this for, say, Abilene, and again, I'm using political language, but for economic chamber purposes, I would go get the data on all the Black people, quote unquote, progressive white people, and the data is available. Some of them with existing email, most of them with cell phone numbers. Ron Eaton could do that for them. So let's treat Abilene like it's a candidate. Some candidate called me up. I say, call Ron because I pay him, and he'll do this for you. He will do a data analytics to find the people you are looking for and how we can contact them. We'll find their email address, we'll find their cell phone, we'll find their IP address, and then it's all about what do you want to tell them. So,
Okay.
I mean, literally, we have Black county commissioners, Black county party chairs, Black city council members, all across that panhandle, large Black population, all the way down to say Tom Green County in that area and out in El Paso. So there are more than enough consumers and a handful of Black businesses and Black professionals and entrepreneurs that can be identified. There's a bunch of Black folks in the oil and gas industry up there. And you could come into that network through Blacks in Energy. So a little cross-pollination, but we could do that, folks up in Abilene, and that's pretty straightforward. East Texas, again, the same kind of thing. It's hard to believe, but East Texas actually has one of the largest Black population in the state of Texas. It's one of the largest segment. And I'm gonna drop out Jefferson County. I'm gonna do everything going north of Jefferson County into quote unquote true East Texas. Literally, we could do the same thing. We can identify all the Black city council members up there, and there are a significant number of them, Black mayors, Black Black people who live there, and Black businesses, Black professionals, Black ranchers and farmers, Black cowboys. They have one of the biggest trail ride roundups in that East Texas. So if I were the chamber up there, that's how I would be targeting to draw people into the chamber in terms of membership. And I would be trying to draw them as participating, at least just reading my newsletter. Because, I think as Harvard Business Journal says, you have to touch me 9 times now. In the old days, it used to be 7. But that newsletter, a text message, a robocall just to promote the chamber, press 1 and you can collect their information. So that's what I would do with the chamber in East Texas. Literally, I was in Denton County. Denton County has one of the fastest, Denton-Collin County now has one of the fastest growing Black population in the state. Large number of Black veterans up there in the Metroplex area outside of Dallas, so you don't have to cannibalize each other. Same thing for East Texas. A bunch of Black veterans live over there. But I was doing the same thing. That's why I say I'll send you all this information, but literally I would treat the chamber like it was a political candidate. So the guy I use out of DC, you could do 100,000 15-second robocalls for $1,000, and you could put a press 1, so a person can press 1 if they're interested. So you collect, Carole Robinson is interested in. You get 50,000 of 30 seconds for $1,000. We do text messages like 8,000 texts for $1,000. If the state chamber went to him or some other vendor like him, and you did a group deal, and this is what March, over the next 9 months, we're going to do this many. Give me a discount, and then you could divvy it up. And I was like a political candidate to me. I don't care what your message is. I don't care what your text message is. I'm covering the cost. Ron, I'm gonna do 500,000 of these, and I divvy up my 500,000 among candidates. And because I'm doing so many, I get a discount price, and every chamber can send their message to their marketplace, because he doesn't care how many calls he does. He knows he's selling 500,000. He knows he's selling 50,000 text messages. And because I'm guaranteeing him business, it's a discounted price. And I mean, you know, again, using political language to discuss economics, outside of now the new map of Texas, Corpus Christi, and that Victoria corridor. It's a bunch of Black folks. You know, going back way in the day to when I first started in politics, we still elect Black city council members down in that corridor. We have a bunch of Black business owners down there in that corridor. So the Corpus Chamber could do a lot of work because it could spread up and down through targeting. Same thing over in San Antonio. You know, part of what I do too is I overlay either Black state house candidates, or you look at places where you see a Black win the nomination to be a state house candidate in Texas. We have a young guy a young African-American guy in East Texas in Congressional District 1 that's in a runoff to be the Democratic nominee. You can't, as an African-American candidate, this is all science, this is not Carol's personal opinion, you get a large enough Black population, even in a Democratic primary, to have a shot. So that tells you that in that Congressional District 1, there's a large enough Black population, and most of those folks are professionals in that East Texas corridor. There's a bunch of Black, there's not Black, but there's a number of economic development entities that cities or counties created in East Texas. And a handful of them are run by African Americans. Up Crockett, in Crockett, I think there's one. But it's folks like that if I'm the chamber, why I talked earlier about making sure you have a relationship with the Black council members, the Black school board trustees. You know, you have a handful of Black superintendents across the state. I mean, so it's the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators. You know, folks sometimes just forget. School boards spend a ton of money. State Board of Higher Education is going to be a big spender of money. And we've got a Sharp sister on that board, and we've got a couple of African Americans that have been nominated this year that could end up on that board. So if I'm a Chamber of Commerce, in addition to prospecting my area, I'm prospecting and building relationships with elected officials locally and statewide that can make a difference. I love state senators and state house members, but really the people who spend money are school board trustees and city council members and county commissioners. And there's another secret group, I'm being facetious, these municipal utility districts and special districts all across the state. Nobody ever talks about them, but you end up with, especially in suburban counties, a lot of African Americans serve on mud boards and special utility flood districts, flood control boards. And so that's another place for the chambers to be building relationships, even if they don't have African Americans, you know, simply showing up at the meeting and advocating, because they all elect a general counsel, they elect accountant, they hire accountants, hire lawyers, hire architects and engineers for their projects. They do construction, vertical, horizontal. So there are many cities in Texas doing the same kind of hiring. They buy pens, pencils, pads, t-shirts, you know, so any kind of Black business you can think of, those special districts do the same kind of spending. And, you know, I call it the aggregation of money theory. If you get 10 of them and you get $100,000 contract, it's still $1 million.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to try to make all your money in Dallas or Houston. You know, you can go out. You're looking like in Travis County, it's really not Austin anymore. It's Pflugerville and there's suburban cities out there. It's Bastrop coming in. So the economic opportunities are there for the local chambers to grow membership, but also grow their fundraising by act like they're a political candidate and go knock on individuals to be individual donors to the chamber, because you give them the portal to membership discounts, and the members get the benefit of the volume, people coming through the local chamber website to access everybody else. So, if I'm a local chamber these days, I'm gonna have all my businesses website on mine. So when you come to my website, you can find everybody that's in the chamber, because if I'm driving volume, it's benefiting my member, it's a value to them, and you're more interested, the individual Carole Robinson, Charles, you're interested in my newsletter now because it's giving you something, it's giving ease of access. The chamber has become Amazon. This one portal
Right.
takes
That's
care,
right. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Every chamber should have all the other local chambers on their website, because we're still this people. If I'm going to another city, I'm trying to find out what's the Black happening, and
That's
I'm
right.
gonna start with my home stuff.
That's
So
right.
the coalition I'm using, we put up
Mhm.
stuff what's happening in other places in America in terms of Black
Mhm.
politics, because Black folks are always interested in that. So any kind of information that's happening in cities in the region, folks would be interesting, and I think it grows traffic to your website. This is the interesting phenomenon. What we found out when we started to run the Facebook social media ads, what it actually did was drive up traffic to the coalition's website. And so if you start driving traffic to your website, the more things you have on the website, especially on the homepage, that I can one click to, the greater the return the traffic will become to you and your members.
Mhm. Oh, that's strong. And in fact, that's one of the things that we've been working on for about the last, maybe probably a year, but really intensely on the last 6 months is, use your term, aggregating databases. Certainly making sure that we all are interconnected in our websites and all that kind of stuff. But we want to make sure that if there is an opportunity for a plumbing contract in Abilene, and there is no Black plumber there, but there's one in Dallas, that we can make that connection.
Yeah.
And so we're really, really working hard on that. And this year we think that we'll actually get it done completely. I think we'll get it done completely. Other questions? I know we've been very, very generous with your time this morning, Bro Robinson. We really, really appreciate it, man. It looks like, if I can be so bold, that we'll probably have to invite you back.
Because,
Okay.
I'm a chamber person.
All right. So if there are no more questions for Mr. Carole Robinson, we certainly appreciate your being with us this morning. I will, if you will, I'll get back with you to make sure that we get the preferred method of contact for you. I've got a couple of questions in there. How do we contact you? I have an email.
Share my cell number and my Gmail.
Okay.
Those are the two best, and you have them. Just give them to members.
That's outstanding. I'll do that.
Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank y'all.
All right. All right, y'all. Any other
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements. Well, one, thank you for moderating the tail end of that Q&A. I thought that was some great information. Wanted to provide the remaining members on this call that I will produce this recording this week, and we'll email it to to you all, so that you all as chambers can share with your networks as well. All of the links to our YouTube is for the consumption of your members as well. This is a resource that we want to provide. In fact, I met with the president and the chair discussing potentially 3 workshops at the 3 Monday morning momentums, the remaining of the year, that will be open to all chamber members. And so, as you probably have seen last night with our constant contact email, I am in the process of creating a system, an automated system, so that we can communicate with you all more effectively, hopefully earlier than the weekend before the meeting. But you all should have, I did recurring information, calendar invites to you all. And so in the months of April, I believe, August, and November, we're going to have those 3 Mondays, those 3 second Mondays, open to the entire membership. So you can invite your chamber members. We'll provide you all flyers and information beforehand so that you can promote that in your newsletters or on your different profiles. And so please be on the lookout for that. Grow Robinson, thank you very much again for a great presentation. Again, this will be available later on this week. And if y'all have any questions for me, please feel free to email me or call me on my cell as well. Mr. President, that's all I have.
Okay, y'all don't sleep on Matt, y'all. Y'all see he got us a QR code on our Monday morning momentum, man, that you could. So we getting high tech up in here, man. Thank you, Matt, for that work that you're doing on making sure that these sessions are available. We are working closely, as Matt noted, with our web developer. We're really trying to get this deal fine-tuned down. I think it's critical, becoming more and more critical, as we discussed with Mr. Robinson earlier, that we stress how interconnected we are in the work that we're doing, irrespective of geography. We got common problems from Corpus to Abilene to Longview down to Jefferson County, as he identified. Clearly, the urban centers have their own sets of problems, but the more that the thought I had over this weekend was it's becoming more and more apparent why there is a TAC and why it's necessary that we have a focal point for bouncing off ideas off of each other, and for shoring each other up when the burden gets a little difficult. Find out that there's 25 other people around the state that are experiencing the same thing that you are. So I think that we are really headed in a good direction with the organization and with our connections between and among ourselves. And so if there are other questions, I see every now and then something's popping in the chat. I see Mr. Mooney came on today. Good to see you, Big Don. He's on mute. Madam Chair, you still in there? Hey, Don, how you doing?
I think we're good, Mr. President.
Okay.
It's 11:40.
Well, if there is nothing else, Matt, thank you so much for making sure that this session went off without a hitch. Again, I don't think that there's any doubt that he was an action-packed. Now, this is my one little funny. Boy, look here. You can tell folk to get paid by the word, can't you? You didn't have to ask him but one question, boy, and he was gone, man. So he's good. But thank y'all so much for your attendance this morning. Thank you, Matt, for constantly keeping us on our toes here. If you have other questions, please. We'll be in the office, I think Wednesday and Thursday in Austin. South by Southwest is going on. We've mentioned to you about our community navigator program with SBA. Their deputy administrator will be in Austin for South by Southwest this week. We're going to try, we were on a Zoom call with him earlier last week, and we'll try to coordinate with him. Our friends, Regions Bank has invited us to a couple of their scheduled events in Austin, also on Wednesday. We want to try to maintain that link. I think they're going to jump in with us at least at the level they were last year. So we want to make sure we keep that contact fresh as well. Any other questions that you might have, I will get Mr. Robinson's contact information out, and we can distribute that. If nothing else, I'm good. Have a great, productive day.